When Chuck Norris goes to McDonald's, the ice cream machine is never broken. Chuck Norris never won an Oscar because he is not acting. Chuck Norris went to a feminist rally and came home with ironed clothes and a ham sandwich. Chuck Norris has a polar bear rug on his floor. It's actually a live bear, but it's too scared to move. When Chuck Norris moved out of his parents' house, he gave his father the keys and said, "Now you are the man in the house." When Chuck Norris falls out of a boat, he doesn't get wet. The water gets Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris has to sleep with a nightlight. Not because he's afraid of the dark, but because the dark is afraid of him. Chuck Norris doesn't mow his lawn. He dares it to grow. When Chuck Norris was born, he drove his mother home from the hospital. Chuck Norris doesn't chew his food. His food knows not to choke Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris is the fastest land mammal even while standing still. Chuck Norris can skip rope with both hands and feet tied behind his back. Chuck Norris got caught talking during an exam. He made the teacher write, "I will not punish Chuck Norris 500 times on the blackboard." Chuck Norris tells his barber that he doesn't like the haircut. Chuck Norris narrates Morgan Freeman's life. Chuck Norris counted to infinity, twice. Chuck Norris once missed 2 days of work. We now call them the weekend. Chuck Norris dropped a bowling ball on his foot. The ball broke. When Chuck Norris was young, he didn't play in the sand. He played in the concrete. When Chuck Norris shows up to something late, they apologize for starting without him. It's impossible for Chuck Norris to have a heart attack, because nothing dares to attack Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris wakes up his alarm clock. Chuck Norris once paused an online game to have dinner. Chuck Norris doesn't breathe. He holds air hostage. When Chuck Norris goes to the rodeo, the bulls ride him. Chuck Norris wears sunglasses to protect the sun. When Chuck Norris moved out of his parents' house, he told his dad, "You're the man of the house now." When Chuck Norris steps on Legos, the Legos feel pain. Chuck Norris tells his bed to go to sleep. Onions cry when Chuck Norris cuts them. When God said, "Let there be light," and Chuck Norris said, "Say please." When Chuck Norris left home for college, he told his father, "Now you're the man of the house." At night, ghosts sit around the fire and tell each other scary stories about Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris stubbed his toe on a door, and the door screamed in pain. When at the doctor, Chuck Norris does a checkup on the doctor. I had a dream about fighting Chuck Norris. I woke up with a black eye. Chuck Norris is the reason why monsters hide under the bed. Chuck Norris doesn't have a shadow. It's too scared to follow him. When Chuck Norris is late for work, his boss apologizes for being too early. Chuck Norris's computer isn't good. The computer is just too scared to lag. When Chuck Norris makes a spelling error, the dictionary gets updated. Chuck Norris can make Gordon Ramsay cry. When in court, Chuck Norris defended his lawyers. Chuck Norris is allowed to say he will be on in 5 minutes and turn up 3 hours later. Chuck Norris bites Dracula in the neck. Dracula turned into Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris doesn't read books. He just stares at the books until they tell him everything he wants to know. Once Chuck Norris dropped an ice cube from his drink, that cube sank the Titanic. Chuck Norris learned how to read from a book he wrote. Chuck Norris wakes up his alarm clock in the morning. When Neil Armstrong landed on the moon, they saw a sign signed by Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris can find hay in a needle stack. When Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone, he had 2 missed calls from Chuck Norris. When the boogeyman goes to bed, he checks under the bed for Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris doesn't find things find Chuck Norris. If Chuck Norris gives you the wrong answer, you ask the wrong question. Chuck Norris introduced his father to his mother. Chuck Norris once didn't want to go to school. Those days are now known as Saturday and Sunday. Sharks get a warning when Chuck Norris is on the beach. When I had a dream I was fighting Chuck Norris, I woke up with a black eye. Chuck Norris doesn't ask for advice. Advice asks for Chuck Norris. 50 cent used to be $1 before he met Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris can do a wheelie on a unicycle? Comment your own joke to get featured. Chuck Norris once waved at a blind person and he waved back. How many push-ups can Chuck Norris do? All of them. When Chuck Norris steps on Legos, the Legos feel pain. Chuck Norris doesn't mow his lawn. He dares it to grow. Chuck Norris won an arm wrestling tournament with both arms tied behind his back. When the boogeyman goes to bed, he checks under the bed for Chuck Norris. Mark Zuckerberg already had a friend request when he created Facebook. It was from Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris convinced his grandma he was not hungry. Follow us for more.